Tim O'Malley with Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated and John Bryce of FootballScoop.com, and we just left Marcus Freeman's press conference that was to preview Duke, and as you might imagine, a lot of wrap-up on Ohio State the weekend that was. And getting into the specifics as quickly as possible, Marcus Freeman, when asked a couple times about when he found out there were 10 players on the field for the last two plays, they never knew on the penultimate play. He said they found out it was too late right before the last snap of the game.
Yeah, apparently Jack Kaiser was aware of it when the second to last play. But again, the positioning on the field, I'm not making excuses. There are no excuses for it, but the positioning on the field made it a little bit more difficult, certainly. And now they have a correction for it. I mean, at the end of the day, like I've seen a lot of people say, well, there's no excuse for it. You're right, and nobody at Notre Dame is making an excuse for it. Marcus Freeman totally places it on himself, and so you have a correction for it. If it happens again, you have a signal, you jump offside, you make contact, so they can't get the playoff. But a little bit too little too late right now.
Yeah, I think so. And Marcus Freeman made a great point during this press conference. One play to not lose that game, certainly not, but a 4-minute span might have lost that game. And I think he touched on that a little, saying we failed to execute on both sides of the ball in the final 4 minutes. I know fans believe that. We all believe that. It's a tough pill to swallow, but I was glad he kind of hung that lantern on it.
Yeah, and Tim, I think you and I talked about it quite a bit Saturday night after the game on the overtime session, but there's no question to me the final 4 minutes. You can point to a lot of that game. I pointed to it in the fifth quarter today. I'll still have, from a Notre Dame perspective, a hard time getting over the fact they so thoroughly dominated the first and fourth quarters and had only 7 points to show for it, and a 7-7 stalemate at that, which gave Ohio State the 3-point win. The end-game situation, I give Marcus a lot of credit today before any of us could ask, and I was one of the ones who did, but before any of us, he went ahead and said, we are procedurally now corrected. We will fix this. We have a signal in place. We met as coaches on Sunday. I thought that was important for him to say, and then he elaborated on it when pressed further when they found out how they're going to address it moving forward. But the final 4 minutes, look, it happens this way sometimes, but I feel like every single timeout Notre Dame took in those final 4 minutes backfired against Notre Dame.
They lost to Ohio State twice last year. Have to make sure they don't do that this year, because I truly believe that's what happened in Marshall preparation week. I'm going to ask Coach Freeman on Thursday if the messaging changed, because I know he doesn't want to change his messaging, and it feels like there has to be a tweak of some way because he must have a reeling football team right now. But enter Riley Leonard, number 17 at this point, Duke, college game day, and another quarterback that is tough to tackle.
He's really good. I mean, I think we talked about Brennan Armstrong so much from NC State. I think this guy is more difficult. He's longer. He's faster.
Yes.
And he really loves to run. They both love to run, but he's very, very good at it. And then their whole offense is predicated upon the read option, our favorite thing, Tim, to watch. They do a lot of, they go through the motions of read option, whether they hand it off or keep it, and he keeps it a lot. But he can throw it too. They're deep. They use a lot of players. Jamion Franklin is their starting nose tackle.
That's right.
So you'll see that stout guy in the middle of the defensive line for them. So they're challenging, but here's the one thing, and we've been getting a ton of questions. Obviously, we have a podcast coming up, and people have wondered, well, will they have the same hangover for Duke that they had last year for Ohio State and Marshall? I don't even consider that. The coaching staff is different. The team is different. The mindset is different. I don't think that is an issue whatsoever. The notion that they would pack it in now, I just do not see that in any way being part of the DNA of Notre Dame football 2023.
The other challenge of Duke is not only the hangover, but Mike Elko, wonderful defensive coordinator. I think all Notre Dame fans respect what he did here. And it's been what are we looking at, 16 games of good defense at Duke. What do you see with Mike Elko? And that it's just, as Marcus Freeman said, it is a solid unit.
It's an incredibly solid unit, a unit that never ever beats itself. They're more athletic than what I think you would expect, especially considering Mike Elko has been there for a year and 3 games, a year and 4 games, whatever it is. They, much like Notre Dame, have used transfers judiciously but very effectively. And when you watch that Clemson game very closely, they were an opportunistic defense that made the most out of turnovers. They really hampered Clemson by forcing turnovers in the red zone. Obviously, Notre Dame is coming off of a game where it was not at its peak operational ability in its red zone, and also then missing the field goal just outside of the red zone. That's very much a key for me. And then we're obviously going to hear about Sam Hartman's previous matchups with Duke through the years. Once again, I throw it out like I did the NC State narrative in that regard, because Sam Hartman has a hell of a lot better team right now that he's playing with, and I believe a hell of a lot more in this team right now than a year ago, because it's so much more authentically Marcus Freeman's program, these players' program. Marcus Freeman, the only coach he didn't hire is Mike Mickens. They go back together to Cincinnati. He would have hired him regardless.
I was going to say, it's fine.
This is Marcus Freeman's program. He has ownership of it. The players have ownership of it. I would be stunned and thoroughly frustrated and disappointed if they had that sort of lingering hangover on game day. It should hang over through the week because they poured so much into it.
One news item and 2 injuries to report. First, the injuries. Deion Colsey will not play this week because he's getting his knee scoped. Marcus Freeman said it'll be at least a couple of weeks. Jaden Thomas is questionable with a hamstring injury. Technically on the depth chart, those two play the same position. Regardless, you're calling up somebody from varsity or from scout team to varsity. Will it be Braylon James because he plays that position? I think that's probably the way you look right now. Could be a little bit more tight end heavy. And a news item. Louisville will be a night game as well. 7:30 Tim Priest, you ready for 4 night games in a row with USC after that?
I'm young and energetic. I'm ready for anything they can throw at me.
We have a podcast postmortem to attend to, but for Tim Priester, Irish Illustrated, John Bryce of FootballScoop.com, this is Tim O'Malley, and has been Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis.